Well, this looks like a piece that I might be willing to tackle.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Yvonne and you are on Ginger Chick Rehab, where I love to take secondhand finds, thrift finds, things that others might throw in the trash and make them over here on the channel. So in today's video, I just recently got this cutest little like rolling cart for extra storage, extra little space in one's kitchen or wherever you may need it. So I was super excited to get it made over and share the process with you all.
It is just a nice size, a little rolling cart. We've got some extra storage, extra cubbies. That's always good. It's a little bit outdated. I believe it may have been a handmade piece back in the day, but I don't know. I'm thinking maybe it was their microwave stand because you can see that ring around the top. I like the towel rack on this one, but I'm not a fan of those really chunky pegs or the chunky pulls and handles on this piece. But we've got some nice storage and we have some good solid wood. There is no way for me to remove the drawer. It is actually built in. It has a stopping mechanism. It has a dowel rod for the glide back and forth. So I'll just work with it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and hopefully, I'm hoping that this is just screwed on and not glued. It would be a little bit more difficult, but it looks like so far it is just screwed on, and I'm super excited about that. And the one thing that I liked about this piece is that it was on casters, though I'm not a fan of these office furniture type of casters. So I will go onto Amazon and I will order some new ones. And you can see, yes, so I got this at an auction. Yep, I don't know how long it was sitting inside that barn. Yeah, none of these guys were paid for. Well, I guess they were paid for, but they're not living in our area. So we are going to go ahead and get that all vacuumed up. You know, that's just part of this job. And it's funny because I'm like, why is that so loose? It's actually just the way that he made it. It's just a board sitting on pegs, kind of like your shelf on a bookshelf. That was interesting. I had not run across a design like this before. It does make it a lot easier to get in there and vacuum all the cobwebs, all the debris out of this. Yep, that second shelf was the same way. It just lifts right out. I'm going to go ahead, and the two of the caster's little inserts popped right out when I took the feet off. But now these are a little bit more difficult. They actually have like little teeth that go into the wood, so you might have to use a prying tool to get them out. And then I'm going to use that same little prying tool to pop off these little covers. Like I said, I wanted to update it a little bit, more of an update to this piece. And there's actually some of them are missing, and I'm not going to try to match those up. Just have one loose piece here. It looks like there's no wood glue whatsoever on this piece. So I might, as I'm repairing this corner, I might go ahead and just put a little Titebond wood glue to make sure that it has a nice bond. And then I need to find a nut that's going to fit onto the screw, because that is what's missing in making it loose. Now that I finally got that little bugger of a screw out of there, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of tight glue. I'm not going to take the rest of the piece apart just to try to glue it all back together, because I really feel like there's just a little bit of space for me to try to, I have to find a nut that fits the screw, and then trying to get it into this little hole with some needle nose pliers is not going to be the easiest of jobs to begin with. Now to fill in where all the pegs were and fill in where the hardware was, I'm using Bondo's wood filler. And if you wonder why I'm not using water putty or a wood filler, another type, is because I'd like it to dry a little bit faster. Now, the Bondo wood filler usually dries in like 15-30 minutes once you have added the hardener. So I want to keep working on my project, so I want my dry time to be minimal. So you just take a scoop of the Bondo, and I need plenty because I have a lot of holes to fill. and then you add a little bit of the hardener, and then you need to work quickly and then mix the two together, because as soon as you add that hardener and you get it all mixed, it starts to set up. Really, it was like 20 minutes and it was hard. And now I'm just going to take some 80 grit sandpaper. Sometimes the longer you wait for the Bondo to cure, the harder it gets. So as time goes on, it gets harder and harder. So within the 30 minutes of doing this, it's really easy to sand with some 80 grit sandpaper. And I'm going to go ahead and scuff sand. This piece doesn't have any finish on it whatsoever. It just has the age of just, being touched in the environment. So I'm going to go ahead and scuff sand it when I'm working on the Bondo areas too. I really would have liked to at least take this off so I could have sanded the towel, this bar here, but it is, one side is built into where the door is that I can't take off either. So luckily I'm able to fit a lot of my mouse sander tip in there to sand it down, but I will have to go in and hand sand a little bit also. I'm working on the underneath of the top. You can see those black spots. I think they're like a water mold, but this is the back of the piece. So I'm going to go ahead and get those sanded. Hopefully they sand right off. So since I have this flipped over, I'm going to go ahead and tape off the underside of this top. I always like to tape off before I wash. That way there's no water left behind that will prevent my tape from sticking. Okay, so I put this off long enough. I have to deal with it. So I'm hoping that this ring, where I'm assuming a microwave, I don't know, was placed on this unfinished wood, will sand off. We'll see. So I'm going to start off with some 80 grit, and then I'll have to work my way up. But first I need the lower number, is like the 80 is the number that will take a lot more of the product off, and then working up from a 150 to a 200, that will smooth out the wood. So okay, we'll just see. Well, there's no luck there. Now, this isn't a true butcher block. This is just a slab of wood, just a slab of pine. It does have some beautiful graining on it, but no, it would not sand off. And I don't want to make it any thinner than it already is. So I'm going to go ahead and take some Clorox bleach and see if we can get a little bit more of that staining off. Like, you can still kind of see that grayish ring. So I'm just going to do some Clorox bleach. There's other products too that you can have. This is just what I use. I have in my workshop to use to try to bleach out wood. So we'll see how the step goes. Left it on for about 15 minutes. It looks like it did take away some of it, but not all of it. And the longer I let it sit there, the more it's going to raise that grain of the wood up, especially in that lighter area in between the two gray parts. I can really see it puffing a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and start rinsing. So I just have some warm water, and I'm just going to keep wiping off, rinsing, wiping off, rinsing, wiping off, rinsing, until I'm sure that I have all the bleach wiped off. I have a different bucket of water with some Dawn dish soap, some hot water, and now I'm going to wipe down the rest of the piece. It's going to take a little bit of a minute for that top area to dry. but I'm not painting. I'm going to end up having to do something with the top, not staining, not leaving it natural, not waxing, not Howard's oil or anything like that. But it's not going to be the same color as the base. That much I do know. But I need to get the rest of the body of this little cart washed off. I don't want to forget about the two shelves, pieces of wood. This is the bottom piece. It doesn't have any staining on it, but I do want to freshen it up and just give it a nice light sanding just with some 220 sandpaper. The top shelf, it does have some staining, so hopefully that we're not going to have problems with this piece, but it looks like it's sanding off. So now that my cart is dry, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a couple coats of shellac. I need to prime this piece. So this is raw wood. I need to seal in where I use the Bondo. I want my paint to take evenly. Watching my latest furniture makeovers, you know that I have been loving on Sweet Pickins milk paint. So this little cubby cart is going to get Sweetie Jane. The names are just so stinking cute. It's just a nice soft green color. Oh my goodness. Now I did make sure this time that I had plenty of product on hand to do this. So it's equal parts powder to equal parts water. I was suggested to have warm water, so that's what I have in my cup here. And then I'm going to go ahead and use this little electric meat beater to mix it up for 2 minutes and then set it off to the side until it thickens. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start to apply it. I'm super excited. I'm going to work on my little problem areas, getting around this little area first. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I think I've got it nice to the consistency I need, that it's not too super runny. You know, it's amazing once you've used a product once, twice, half a dozen times, how much better your knowledge is. And I appreciate each and every one of you that have used this on a regular basis, helping me along learn this product. Me, I find it easier to then mix up another smaller batch. It's not going to take as much as the first batch. So 4 scoops I did the first time. So this time I did 2 scoops. So I'm on to my second coat. Now you can see the first coat didn't have any crackles on it, but it is raw wood. So hopefully I can get the second coat to crackle, but I'm going to go ahead and get it all applied, and then I can re-wet it with a mister bottle. Was a viewer's suggestion, thank you, instead of painting one area and trying to hit it with a heat gun at one time. But yes, I'm going to go ahead and get this all painted with the second coat. Since this just isn't going to crackle on its own, I'm going to see if I can help it along. And viewer suggestion, a couple of you have suggested that you can reactivate the milk paint by wetting it down. So I just have a Mr. bottle with some warm water. I'm just going to work in spots, and then I'm going to hit that with the water, and then I'm going to use my heat gun to say, hello, come on, little crackles, come out and greet us. Oh, here it comes. Yep, I did end up misting the water just a couple times to get it to, I'm like, well, it didn't work the first couple squirts, so let's see if I can get it, because it has to go through the 2 layers of paint. But oh, look at here. What I ended up doing is I just ended up hitting main areas that I thought natural crackle would happen from wear and tear. So just misting it, hitting it with that heat gun, and if it didn't start with the first spray of the mist, then I'd go ahead and mist it again. So it was a little bit more work, because every piece is going to take differently. Something that was previous painted, something that had a heavy finish on it. This didn't have any finish on it, even though I put a couple coats of shellac. There just wasn't anything in, so the paint was really absorbing into this. So I'm just kind of coercing it to crackle on its own, giving it that vintage look I'm going for. So the top of my piece, of course, took longer to dry, but it's almost there. I might hit it with the heat gun and help it along. It's not terrible, but it's not pretty. It's not something that I could just wax or oil or it's just blech. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm not going to be able to salvage those parts. It's not cost efficient as a flipper for a small piece like this to pop off the wood and put new wood on. So I'm just going to whitewash it. I'm just going to heavily whitewash it. So I have some Color Fusions Victorian lace paint, and I'm just mixing about half with water, and then just mix it up, and then I'm just going to apply it on. This is raw wood. It's going to go ahead and soak it in. So, I should mention that I actually went with a 150 to a 220 sandpaper before doing so. I don't know why. I mean, when you're sanding something, you can't really tell that I've changed out the grit of the paper. But yes, after it dried, I needed to resand it to make sure that it was nice and smooth, because wetting it like that raises the grain of the wood. After I got it all on, now it's time to wipe it off. So that raw wood is really going to pick it up. But when I'm wiping off, I want to go with the grain of the wood. Yep, so just wipe off in the direction of the grain of the wood and see what we have. So I'm just taking that first layer of paint, and I'll just keep kind of working my way down until I'm not removing any more product. To make it match, I'm going to go ahead and do the one shelf that is showing, not the bottom where the doors close. This is just the shelf where you can see. So I'm going to do that same whitewash to this piece also. Y'all have to tell me in the comments below, what do you think of this color? Now, I did a couple smaller items with this color on some of my thrift store flips, my smaller items, and I loved it then, and I love it even more on a bigger piece. So now I just have some 220 sandpaper on my Orbital sander, and I want to distress this. So I've got the chippiness going on. It's going to, when I'm sanding it, it's going to take some of that chippiness off. You're still going to see the chippiness. It's just going to take those big chunks off. But I want to give it a little bit more age by sanding down to some of that raw wood. And this milk paint, I tell you all, how wonderful when you take that 220 sandpaper, how smooth it feels. I'm also going to go ahead and just do the top. It's that perfectly imperfect. It's that chippiness. It's that crackle. It's the pieces of missing paint. It's the edges showing. So I want to tie that. I don't want to have a whole fresh painted top when I have so much chippiness going on the bottom. So, and I know that it didn't completely, I wasn't going for complete coverage. I think of the grain of the wood underneath this overpowers the imperfections of the ring that was left behind, and it'll just make it a beautiful, aged, perfectly imperfect piece. You do need to seal milk paint in, so I'm actually just starting off with some Varathane natural wax, and I'm actually using some steel wool to really get it in there. Just some the finest steel wool. It's like 4/0 fine steel wool, and that's really going to even soften up this piece even more. I have it sealed in with the natural wax. I'm going back in with some Jolie's black wax, and that's really going to bring out those crackles. Now, you could do it vice versa. I don't really notice too much of a difference that you might have to rub a little bit harder to get the black off. So having the natural underneath is a little bit more of a control. But I really do think that Jolie's, that black wax, just pops those crackles, that crazing, the chippiness even more. And the Sweet Pickins does have like a hemp oil. I haven't tried any of them yet. I put them in my cart and I take them out. Do you all do that? Like, I want to try it, but I don't know. I just don't know. So sometimes baby steps. I've been trying lots of paint here lately, so baby steps. So I'm going to do that same thing to the top of this. Seal it in with some natural wax and then a little bit of that black wax to bring out, for the top of the piece, to bring out the details and that raw wood that I sanded. I want to go ahead and freshen up the inside. So I'm using some of the Howard Sisters wax. I think this sat in a barn. You always like your pieces to smell good for their new owners. So why I don't have it all put together? Why not take advantage of it and get it all nice and clean? This really will give that raw wood that's been sitting around a nice drink. If I left any tape behind, I will also find that during this time. So if you're new to our channel, this is my husband, Chris. He always, when he gets home from his 9-to-5 job, he always comes in and says what he can do to help me. And I'm like, hey, well, I was just getting ready to do hardware, but I will take some help. So if you do not know, we bought a new house. We're moving our workshop, and a lot of our tools seem to be headed to the new house. So usually he would use like a Craig jig to do this part of knobs on. But, it's the old-fashioned way of just measuring down to find the center where you want to put a knobs. And I have quite the hoard stash of knobs, and I'm glad I did. I had these vintage porcelain ones with the screws in the middle. So, yeah, so it's nice. If somebody offers to help you, oh, heck yeah, take all the help you can get. These are the wheels that I got off Amazon. I like the nice chunky wheels. I like that little industrial with this little cottage core going on there. And I like that they have a brake system. So 2 of them have a brake system so you can prevent it from moving. But since the other ones were just like a little peg that went in, we need more substantial for something to be screwed into. So Chris is cutting off some pine pieces to glue and to nail in place to hold the wheels. I let that glue sit up overnight, and now it's the next morning. I'm going to go ahead and take off the clamps. And now when you order these type of casters, these did not come with screws, so I had to find 16 matching screws in our hardware that were short enough that didn't go all the way through this pine piece. Before putting this on the ground, I need to remember to brad nail it in. My Ryobi brad nailer, is at the other house. Of course it is. So I'm like, what do we have in our stash that I can use to nail this in? So luckily, we do have something in our arsenal that we can still use.
So thank you so much for watching today's video. Yes, sometimes your plan, I've always said that here in the channel, when you buy items secondhand, you don't know, will the stain come off the top? Nope, it didn't. It just didn't. So whitewashing it, it kind of goes with that perfectly imperfect of the rest of the piece with that chippy milk paint. Oh my gosh, I'm just absolutely loving that. I love the color. Yes, I like those faithful wheels of Amazon, buying those. I know that they're going to roll. Sometimes we are lucky enough to have them in our stash, but I just like that more industrial vibe so people can roll it in and out, and the little braking system is nice if you don't want it to roll in and out. So let me know down in a quick comment down below. What did you think of my makeover? Did you like the whitewash technique to cover up? Yeah, I mean, I could have replaced the piece of wood, but then you start getting on cost, and for what I could sell this item for, which is between 75 and 125, and 125 is being way on the high end for this little piece. You have to sometimes live with that perfectly imperfect. It's just how it goes, especially as a flipper. So let me know down in the comments below, have I inspired you to look at secondhand finds in a new way? And thanks again for watching today's video, guys, and we will see you next time, and you can see what we're up to. Bye.